Good morning, everyone. We're really excited to have you here at the Media Growth webinar, and we know that you'll be really benefit for this. So Kevin is going to be speaking for us, and Kevin Arsham is a partner at Mediacom and has been in the media industry for 30 years, strategically managing B2B media investments for multinational companies that have included GE, Citizens Bank, Simonsen, Bell, FedEx, Lockheed Martin, Shell, and Medtronic. He is a recipient of 6 different industry awards, nominations, combined with nominations in B2B marketing. He is the former chair of the 4A's B2B Media Committees, currently serves on B2B Media Executive Committee. He is also the creator of the video services Peer-to-Peer B2B Media. And I want to thank Redux. Redux is our sponsor today, and the reason we're able to do the webinar. Please contact Redux when you have a survey, research need for custom surveys and effectiveness studies. And we used Redux for 2 of our studies recently, and they've done a great job. So thank you so much, Redux, for sponsoring this webinar and making it possible. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this webinar over to Kevin. He's going to give an excellent presentation. I know I've looked at his presentation. I know that you'll all benefit from it. So Kevin, I'm going to give it over to you.
Thank you, Kathy. Hello, everybody. And thank you to our sponsor. And before I begin, I wanted to thank Media Growth for having me. And thank you for all attending this webinar. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. Especially thank you as we're nearing the holiday and you're taking time out to attend this webinar. It's much appreciated. I've been asked to speak mainly to publishers of industry magazines and websites or other digital offerings. I wanted to tell you also a little bit about what you'll get out of today. And it's really about the greatness that you bring to clients and giving you a real insight into what it's like to work at a media agency, what goes on every day, how you can get on our radar, so how you can get noticed as a publisher, and some best practices. I mean, there are so many best practices, but I've narrowed it down to some key highlights that you might find very interesting. And as a little something extra, I wanted to give you some inspiration. This is what I find inspiring before a sales pitch. I mean, we all have to sell to some degree. And I think these are some vintage photographs. To the left is a clipping of the Apollo 11 launch. If you go on YouTube and look at that clipping, it is so inspiring. And even if you find the clipping with some music, this is the astronauts walking, say, the plank before they get into the capsule, they get into the rocket. And it's so moving that is something to watch before you go on a sales pitch. It might give you a lot of the energy you need to make that sales pitch work. I also think what's inspiring is watching, or finding it on YouTube, a clipping of any entertainer before they walk on stage. And there's many of those out there on YouTube. And this is just a vintage shot of the Beatles at Shea Stadium before they walked on stage. And you'll be surprised of how nervous and energetic entertainers are before they get on stage. So I always like to see these things in action before I have to do something like a sales pitch. So I hope you find that interesting. Or if that's not interesting, also what's listening to symphonic, symphony, your favorite symphony song before you go into a sales pitch. So one of the things I want to tell you is, and Kathy, thank you for introducing me and giving a little bit about my background. I also want to tell you a little bit about where I work. Mediacom is part of Group M. We are 3 of the 5 top media agencies. And by collaborating with our parent company, WPP, we can partner with a multitude of creative agencies and expand our resources. finding unique ways to connect our clients with customers and bring them value and profit. We are an agency that's driven by culture and diversity, social impact and technology. We are about people, inside and out. So you can see where I say Group M, it's really about building this scale, and plus the buying power we have will equal media savings and a lot of cost efficiency for our clients. And that comes out in the way we work with or partner with publishers in our negotiations and looking at the fairness of pricing as an example. And at Mediacom, we're full service, working on both consumer facing accounts and business to business accounts. We are in the US alone, we employ over 1,000 employees in 5 major cities. We are in 100 countries, 125 locations, and you can see our hubs there written below. So again, just wanted to tell you a little bit about where I am every day, whether connected or actually in the office. And as Kathi mentioned right at the end, that I developed a peer-to-peer, what I called peer-to-peer B2B video series. And the reason why I did this is that I felt that publishers needed to have a voice on our radar to get closer inside the media agencies, to talk about their unique offerings and not just rely on a sales call or a media kit. So what I did is really worked on the writing and the producing and the directing and invited publishers to come into our agency. We sat down in a small room and with a video camera, and we just talked openly about the business. And I called it peer-to-peer and B2B. And you can find these videos on my LinkedIn page. So one of the things I want to talk about that's really important to start off is what we need from you as a publisher to help drive business growth and media savings. And these are just some examples to the left. What we look for when we look at measurement, when we look at goals and measurement and the outcome of our media plan, is that we want to see perhaps maybe a lift in word of mouth or an increase in revenue on the client side. We want a lift in purchase. We want to see awareness to grow if that's the goal on an upper funnel level. We want to see savings in media. And these are some examples. So you can see some of the numbers and against some of the accounts we have. So think of these things as kind of, starting point, the things that we're going to look for and what needs to come at the end of that media plan. So industry publishing, if I could pick 3 major things that are important or what really makes industry publishing so great, is that it gives our clients a deep dive into an industry field. And I'm talking, as I mentioned before, if you are a publisher of an industry magazine or an industry journal, whether that's in construction, healthcare, retail, just to name a few, your publication, your website, and all your digital products gives clients the ability to drive the discussion that's taking place in the industry and to be perceived as a real business partner by providing a solution to industry needs. You're also a very trusted resource because the audience really actively provides information willingly about themselves to you, whether it's through if they're getting audited, if the audience is being audited by BPA as an example. And we require as an agency that at least 85% of the audience of your publication is qualified by their job title or industry. And also what I feel is a key point is that publishers, direct publishers, are less susceptible to fake news, as the content is restricted to the industry. And third, interestingly, many industry sites will climb to the top of Google. So if I type in control engineer, Google will reveal a industry website such as engineering.com on top of the results, as an example. And this is kudos to all the publishers out there. And this is just a few examples of many that I've found of the growth of publishing. And I'll give an example. And so 72% of retailers put new products on their shelves as a result of seeing them first in industry magazines. And are, interestingly enough, targeting beyond the broad business media, such as Bloomberg or Fortune, actually increased by 77%. And custom content with publishers grew without the in-person events, this past year and the year before. And interestingly, the digital ad spending in B2B is outpacing the larger digital ad market. And if I was going to just put a fine point on things, we used to have what is called the bin report, which we can see how many trade magazines were purchased in a year and how much revenue trade magazines were getting and how many ad pages were generated. And this is just below kind of an average, but it's hard to believe, but there's over 2,400 different trade magazines out there, or I like to call industry magazines, that are specific to that industry and an environment that an advertiser could be part of the conversations that are going on in that industry. And I'm going to say this a lot, approach an industry issue and be the solution to that industry through their products or services. And 480,000 ad pages generated in that respect from those magazines. I also want to talk about, the touch points that are on the rise. What's really being strategically effective as a tactic to bring the message forward, to drive the audience to the site, to get more information. I think infographics are really important. Infographics to me are like the hook. You hook them in. You illustrate those industry issues and solutions that I mentioned before. And this can be on the homepage of your website. And maybe the first thing they see before a banner with a message and a visual or a hyperlink. A great way to visualize the client story, whether it's about the solution or value or an unexpected issue that's arising in the marketplace. And then e-blasts. I see these as conversation starters. They provide initial or new business insights. You can put a click here to learn more, and it's exclusive to the advertiser. Another tactic on the rise is what I call a native article series, a series of articles where our clients or your advertisers can own the conversation, collaborate with you on creating articles that tackle these industry issues and provide these solutions. And it should look like headline news. It's almost a way, yes, it's kind of like PR, but what you're creating here with either the agency or the advertiser are bold headline news articles that run on the homepage and they get amplified in other different areas that I'll talk about in the next couple of slides. And print is still valuable. When I talk to a publisher and say, or I ask, can I see the channel mix that your audience is valuing the most? Print is still, on top, on the rise. And you can see some numbers there, 70% or above. And what's interesting about print is that it's a more tangible, multi-dimensional way to tackle the industry solution, to talk about it, to showcase it, to visualize it. And I think it's important for you as a publisher to sell this in a creative way, whether it's a polybag opportunity or insert opportunity. Something that always comes to mind is the painter's color wheel. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is, but as a painter, you have a little kind of rounded cardboard wheel that has two sides put together, and you move one side to take one color and match it against another color. So for example, red, and then on one wheel, switch to yellow on the other wheel is going to turn into orange. Now, where am I going with this? Well, imagine doing that same thing, but with a client's product or solution, where they can turn two different wheels and match different things up to get the full portfolio or breadth of offerings that an advertiser has. And imagine having that polybagged in the magazine. So I want to talk a little bit more about this article idea, and to show you what this means visually, to illustrate this for you. And that's an example there with a industry magazine with a headline, a visual, and body copy that was created between the media agency, the publisher, and the client. And that article led to another site, or actually, I'm sorry, it directed them to the site where they can now download a guide and give information about who they are. So in that case, you're generating a lead. And this is all about really getting embedded into your editorial well, or what I call your social well. And I was looking at the results of this when we did this for Shell Energy. And really, to give you a case in point, in just 4 months by doing this, Shell's article program with some webinar topics delivered 1,200 leads, again, in just 4 months. And what's great about that is that their goal was 500. And this is another visual way of looking at it. The whole idea is to jump off the advertiser's website into this homepage headline news article series, and then amplifying it even further. As I showed before, it can link to guides with a lead qualifier. It could be adapted into your e-newsletter, and it could be posted on your social sites. So now I want to get into a typical day at the media agency. And I wanted to start by telling you about success and where success comes from. It comes from collaboration with publishers. And that equals what I see happening with that success is that planners are developing such amazing skills when they work with you, when they collaborate with you, from media skills to business skills to just generating ideas. So when you work with a media planner at an agency, think about what can you do to, help them develop their skills in that sense, not just from media, but from a business sense, from a creative idea. And I wanted to talk about how we do it differently at Mediacom. And these are three things that I wanted to kind of, I mean, I could probably add 10 things to this, but the three that I chose is about owning that topic. Because at Mediacom, our challenge or our goal is to meet with you and to get our clients there first in owning a topic, a hot topic in the industry, and building awareness of those unanticipated needs and bringing solutions forward. And also what we do at Mediacom is that we invent media. We go beyond what publishers traditionally offer, meaning we can invent unique tools with publishers. And I'm going to show you an example in just a bit. So clients can build valued partnerships with their customers. And then we streamline multi-complex businesses with many stakeholders, units, products, services, and goals into a workflow that is efficient, consistent, and standardized. And I bring this up because, when we get a sales call, sometimes we have to be open and transparent and say, look, this may not apply just to one business, but multiple businesses within an account. And so we work through that together. And I wanted to kind of highlight some basic steps to building a media plan. It all starts with the media brief, which has the objectives, the goals, and measurements. What are we trying to measure? What can be measured? Whether it's something regarding sales as an example. Typically, this is specific to each media plan, campaign, or line of business or country. And from that media brief, which is a document or an outline of a discussion between the agency and the client, and we have all this figured out from timing as well to budget, then we get into our data tools where we do some cross-tabbing. Cross-tabbing target audiences by media usage, defining audiences further by size, demographics, and behaviors against media usage. And we may pull this from Kantar or BPA. There's another site called SimilarWeb where we can compare the unique users of one site to another, or Pathmatics for competitive spending. With all this data in mind and doing the cross-tabbing to know the audience and the media they value the most, we could create that optimal channel mix. And from there, create strategic tactics and touch points that really engage the audience, and it's going to build off that overall strategy. And then from there, we begin, because we've done all this research, and sometimes this is another thing, we'll get a call from a publisher, and we have to sometimes explain that we'll get there, our conversation, our collaboration will begin very soon. But you have to understand that at a media agency, it's like NASA. It's like a science lab. It's like it's like a chocolate factory. We are a factory of information. We are researching. We are experimenting. We are building all these ideas and coming up then with our partner list. And then we get into those conversations with you. We begin the request for information process. The RFP comes out, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the RFP process shortly. And from the work we do in that stage of negotiating and working out, tactics and what will activate with you, we create the media plan, and then we obviously activate and lock in a schedule to the process of sending out insertion orders. And we're also, as I mentioned before, it's like a lab, it's like NASA over at our media agency, because we're keeping our eye on the media. We're doing all this work before we even have our conversation. We're doing the cross-tabbing, as I mentioned before, and I just wanted to put logos on some of the companies that we partner with to gather information, build up personas, collect behavioral data. So in addition to cross-tabbing, we'll look at industry trends. We'll tap into eMarketer as an example, do some Google searching, and then we get into the planning tools. And I'm going to talk about, you've seen BPA, that logo prior. You've seen some of these other logos. I'm going to show you what that means and how we're using those tools in the next slides. So this is a BPA audit report, which not only audits your print audience, but also your digital audience. And this is very important. It's very important for us to do what we call an agency auditing process. This ensures that specific job titles and industries are reached without wasted circulation. And so as you can see to the right, this is a copy of a BPA statement. It shows the job titles that this particular publication is reaching and gives us a composition of their audience by these job titles and by these industries by looking at these percentages or these numbers. And we also look at how many of them or what percentage of this audience is actually directly requesting to receive the publication as opposed to getting it because they are a member of association or it came through some bulk process. We also want to make sure that within the year and now that's a low, now I mentioned we're looking for 80%, but here I'm just, obviously that shows 73%, but that's what we're looking for, to make sure that a high percentage of this audience have been qualified by their job title, by the industry they're in. And that allows us to, when a publication is audited, obviously the audience is filling out the forms to bring this information together in this readable format. In the corner to the left, we take this information and we visualize it for the client. Clients actually like to see this. They like to see audited information. And we can put it in bar charts and do a comparison of one publisher to the other. And I do want to say that your digital audience through BPA is also measured. That's very important to know how many unique users are coming to the site on a monthly basis. Now, through audience data, which I've talked about before, which could be lists or looking at intent to purchase, lookalikes, people that are actually in market, we create heat maps on leading industries, the top verticals. So this allows us through a program or a partner that we have to look at a particular audience. And again, as I mentioned, what industries they're in. Like in this case, construction, healthcare, and retail come out high. And that would lead to doing something directly with partners. Now, this audience might be something a little bit more broad in general, such as small business owners with a certain number of employees or a certain amount of profit or income. And that could lead to using general business media, sure, or doing something programmatically, doing something in an ABM strategy, account-based marketing. But we like to take it further also and to see, well, from those small business owners, where are they? And if they're in construction, we may want to partner with a construction publication and a construction website and construction newsletters and construction associations and construction trade shows, just to name a few. Now I want to talk about the RFP process, which I did mention before. The RFP process, it's a form that you would get from us because we are considering you for our media recommendation. And the reason why it's important is because it's standardized. It allows better agency control and provides everything that an agency needs according to the objectives and the strategy that we've built. And the RFP includes everything from the traditional to perhaps the out-of-box thinking and ideas. And a lot of questions I get is, well, how does this compare to us giving you, or a publisher giving us, a package deal and a package proposal? Traditionally, they're less considered these days because things are a bit more linear, such as, what are we going to do with high impact units across the board or across multiple sites? Or what are we going to do with newsletters across a select number of sites? So that's why this process organizes the thinking, the costs, as an example. And another thing I want to call out is about, let me just make sure I wanted to call out about when you make a phone call to an agency or you email an agency, or if we as a media planner call you or send you an email. It's very important that you think like a planner, that you think about all the different elements that goes into making a buy. And I will say this, that 9 out of 10 times when I speak to a rep from a publication or a website, we go through a couple things, but they're not the first to talk about circulation or impressions or available dates and closing dates or the materials that are needed. Not all of them cover what I would say from A to Z on the phone, and they really should. They really should have all the dots connected. So I kindly give out this suggestion or recommendation that think about these things and have them down, or know it in the back of your mind when a buyer calls, that the circulation and the impressions, what's available and what's closing, or what the closing dates are, what's going to be needed if you're talking about a tactic in terms of the assets and things of that nature. And now I want to get into best practices. And it's really about, one of the best practices, as I mentioned before, is invention. Coming up with a very unique idea that we can break the mold, that we can be really embedded in your website. And this is just one example of seeing how we might be part of your masthead or your portal. This is an example to that top right, where you see connectivity by whatever the advertiser might be. And we could have sponsored listed there, so they know that this is meant to be as a promotional or an advertising piece. So think about ways, evaluate your home page and different pages of your site, and think about ways to get embedded. Publishers are doing a great job with sponsored content, but where we haven't gone too far yet is going even a step further and being even more embedded into the editorial well by either being part of your features or your kind of masthead, let's say. And I mentioned before about the idea of creating media. And this is just one example. So I could show you an illustration of how we created a unique business tool for clients and really for client customers. This was called Relocate App. This is just an idea that's in the works right now. And what Relocate App is, it's really targeted to corporate executives or resource managers who are looking to expand their business by relocating, building additional facilities in other marketplaces, and using an app that has city planning built into it, or the geospatial technologies. They can find locations to relocate and build those additional facilities. They can look up, so they can pick Cleveland as an example and see everything they need to know about construction, roads, talent, the talent market, the network speed capabilities. If birds migrate there at a certain point, I mean, anything we can think of to put into this app that allows these relocation managers or corporate managers to really investigate that market before investing in building in an additional facility. And that information is gathered from a publisher. We find some publishers have a lot of insightful information, a lot of research that they do that we could pull from. Now I wanted to get into media kits because this is a question that comes up all the time, especially with the ability to digitize media kits. And there are still publishers that are doing the physical printing. This is the way to do a media kit. You have the advertising information should include a visualization of the audience. And it doesn't even have to be so illustrative. I mean, it just needs to have that circulation information and the breakdown of that information of who the audience is by job title and industry, just like I showed in the audit statement. This is especially important if you're not audited. And if you are audited, then just having a link to your BPA statement is enough. But also calling out how many unique users go to your website. As you can see in this illustration there, this particular publisher showed 147,000 people come to their site on a monthly basis. The editorial calendar is very important. So we can understand the topics that are going to be addressed in the publication, but also that might be matching what's going to happen online as well. This is also another illustrative way of how to do it. Again, showing that audience by job function. You can show interest, having that statement there, having the editorial calendar there. And let me just back up, just make sure that everybody saw this and got what I was getting at, the information that we're looking for. And the reason why I bring this up is because many times we don't see this online. We can't find this information when we go to a publisher's website. And this is the way not to do it. And if you can see here, it's very general, no information whatsoever. And And one of the things that a publisher should do is avoid doing something like this, where you're asking a buyer, a media buyer, to complete a form to download a media kit. Because sometimes we're planning almost in real time, and we need to come up with a mix as we're at our, in our science lab creating. And also, please don't give out general contact numbers or emails. We really need a specific contact by name, email, or phone. So I hope this helps in really kind of illustrating what we would like to see on your website when we go to the advertising portal or the About Us portal. And we need the information we need to consider you as part of the media mix. So what we need to know as an agency is we need to know your audience. We want to take inventory of your editorial, hence the need to look at your editorial calendar. But we will also look online, and I'll show you in the next slide how we look through your website. We need to know who to contact, and not just a general number or a general email. And we would like to download a PDF of the entire media kit. And as a publisher, we kindly ask or recommend, suggest that you provide a number and a percentage of the audience qualified to receive within the year that publication, the number and percent by job title and industry, number and percent who directly request the title versus receiving it as part of just a company or association. Just reiterating the things I mentioned before. The number that are sent to individuals by name and title is important as well. And getting into your digital media, knowing the unique monthly visitors to your site and the number of e-newsletter subscribers that you have, and the rate, the open rate, the percentage that they open the newsletter. And what's also important is, how is your title when you speak to a media planner to get through? One way is to really say or speak about how your title is really different in the category, how you stick out, what sets you apart from the others. And another thing that I think is unique, and it's not here, but to bring up, is talk about influencers. What influencers do you have that you might be able to bring to the table and use or collaborate with the advertiser or our clients? Whether it's somebody that is an author in the industry, writes about the industry, somebody very popular that's getting a lot of traction on your site, a celebrity in your industry, in another way of saying it. And so I talked about looking at your website, scanning the website, looking at the different pages. And what we're evaluating are your portals, your drop-down menus. We look at the headline news that you have, the depth and length, the quality and quantity of your articles, and the features you offer. Are you offering practical applications for businesses to use, something that's almost really tangible, and that's going to help businesses really get ahead or have a competitive advantage. And the resources that you have overall, whether it's your resources or that are sponsored or that we can sponsor. And now I wanted to get into helping you as a publisher get noticed. And some of this you may be very familiar with. Of course, I've mentioned BPA and SimilarWeb prior, but these are the partners or the sites to connect with to get noticed. So for us, Standard Rates Data Service, SRDS, where we can go in and look up by category a publisher. And that's where you should be listed if you're not already. To connect with BPA and get audited. To consider the BPA Media Exchange, which is it gives you the opportunity to get involved in a private marketplace. And SimilarWeb, where we're able to track total visits to your site and compare it to another site in the same category. And Kantar Media, whether it's MRI, Siemens, whether it's Mars data, because what we do with Kantar or Telmar sources is that we're able to put in columns different audiences and then in rows media, whether it's a channel or a media title, a publishing title. And that's where we find you. And that's a way to get noticed, to get on our radar screen. And one of the things I wanted to mention is, and it's a question that when I was speaking with Kathi, that I wanted her to ask the audience, you guys, what do you see, what channel do you find competitive to your profit? And I think communications with first-party data could possibly be a competitive, strategy. And I kind of illustrated this, but I don't want to get into too much detail here. I know it's a lot to see, but when we take first-party data and we look at accounts and purchase history and site visits, we are onboarding company domains and doing segmentation and looking at the propensity of audiences. We're looking at firmographics, we're looking at technographics, and we take that first party data from our client and merge it with third party data, where we look at, another way of calling it is intent data. We find accounts that are in market that are similar to the first party data, whether it's lookalikes or personas. We're looking at search behavior. We're looking at ways that audiences are using search. And we onboard those companies. And that gets into a whole strategy involving account-based marketing or programmatic. And from there, we're attracting new customers, we're converting customers, and we end up with surging accounts and also re-engaging accounts. And sometimes this could be a competitive way or a competition to direct publishing. But for us, it all works hand in hand. It's all connected. These are all media channels and strategies we use to connect everything, to bring, value, and to really achieve the overall goals that our clients have. So I really want to thank you, and I hope that answers a lot of questions that you may have had going into this. And I know Kathi has some questions for me as well. But that really is ends the presentation.
Kevin, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation, and I know that the people who were on this webinar have learned a lot. So I want to ask you some questions. You mentioned an article. What was that for non-paid media?
No, that was for paid media.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So a question I have for the audience is if you could put this in the question box, and it'd just be interesting to know what everybody thinks about this. Is there any channel such as connected TV, account-based marketing that you feel like is competitive to you? And, kind of do a little poll there and ask everybody. So that's great. So Kevin, I want to ask you, what challenges do you face working in media?
Oh, that is I'm sorry, I just got that's probably one of my challenges is I'm always getting emails daily. And I will answer that question for you in 2 seconds.
Thank you so much.
Let's get to the, let me pull that up. Something that, I apologize, I don't want to.
We don't necessarily have to have it on a slide.
Well, I would say,
tell us, that would be great. Thank you.
No, I can answer it. I'm sorry. So,
Sure.
this is a typical day. You get emails nonstop, but sometimes you're challenged with the cart before the horse or the chicken and egg situation, and it's very important to try to kind of know how to manage that and work around that. Our job, or my job as is really to master the art of orchestrating those types of situations. Again, the chicken and the egg and the cart before the horse situation. And we orchestrate it in a way that's really going to deliver a great outcome. I would say if that is probably a key challenge.
Right. Okay.
Oh.
Thank you very much. So what roadblocks do you often come across with clients when trying to do innovative media?
Well, sometimes a great idea is often dubbed a tactic when in fact it carries a lot of weight and supports a strategy. And when it's put out there in the environment, it can really break the mold. So a great idea or a tactic, to me, it's like a great scene in a movie that has captured your attention. It may not necessarily carry the whole theme of the movie, but it does add to the universal message of a great script, if I could use that analogy or metaphor.
Yeah. Okay, great. Is printing the media kit still important? Everybody does it digitally and puts it online, but is it still important to have a printed copy for the agencies?
It's important to have everything on the website so that a media planner or buyer, can easily print PDFs of information when necessary. But for a publisher to, let's say, mass produce hardcover media kits, it's probably not so necessary.
Okay. All right, thanks for that advice. What are the media channels or programs that typically used to complement going direct?
I would say some of the ones I mentioned before, like programmatic, CTV, connected addressable TV is on the rise. Streaming media is very popular now. Podcasts, trade shows, using publishers' social pages. We like to see in the mix. That's a great way to complement the media plan.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I mentioned account-based marketing strategy, and to some, as I said, that may or may not be felt as competitive to their profit. It'll be interesting to see what people feel about that, so I can learn from this audience.
Yeah, I can just put that in the questions box.
Yeah.
What channels you use to, such as connected TV and account-based marketing that you feel like are competitive, and then we'll talk about that. So what actual mistakes have publishers made when activating their media?
I would say sometimes running the wrong creative, or making a mistake on availability, on the inventory. not being the first to suggest a way to optimize if they see a drop in performance. If I could put a fine, I think those are key things,
Sure.
or key mistakes that we see.
Okay, great, great. Okay, so you need, closing words, Kevin, that you haven't, you gave an excellent presentation. And we have just a minute or two if you have some closing words that you'd like to tell everybody.
Just, I can't thank you enough for joining this, and I hope you learned a lot. Again, my goal is always to see where, to look at so many different channels. And if I see a channel that is, let's say, dropping in revenue or usage or value, I try to get involved and to see what's causing that and to help that channel. And in this case, direct publishing, to grow and to speak to publishers directly, or to use the the committees that I'm on to help in a way that we'll see growth across the board. And that growth has to mean that it's helping the advertiser to grow as well, that the media channel or the publisher and all the different marketing elements you have is putting them into market the right way, but is delivering, on the goals that they set forth.
Great, great. Thank you so much. So thank you for coming to the webinar. And I want to mention that, Media Growth Summit is October 5th and 6th. It's going to be in Chicago live, which we're all very excited about. And we have great speakers who are going to be talking about the transformation of B2B media and the future of B2B media. And all of the speakers and the agenda are at mediagrowth.com. So we encourage you to look at that. We've got all the speakers up and they're going to be talking about some topics that can really help you to run your business. So I also want to thank Redex again, for making this webinar possible. Please contact Redex when you have a survey research needed for custom surveys to add effectiveness study. We've used them for many, many years in the different companies that I've worked for. So thank you again, Kevin, for all of your time and for your expertise. And we're all excited that things are actually getting better. And it's been a long haul, but coming back. So yeah.
I just wanted to say that the success of everything doesn't happen without a great team. And and part of that collaboration with the publisher, that's what makes it all happen. So just throwing it out there.
No, that's great. No, that's really true. And I really appreciate you talking about that. I mean, the relationship between, the advertising agency and the publisher is critical. And it's good for everybody to learn about, how to work with agencies. And, we've all worked with agencies for many years. And you're partners with this. And if we work together, then we're all successful. So
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Okay, great. Well, we're out of time. Thanks again, Kevin. Excellent presentation. Everybody have a great day and best of success for you as things get better. Okay, have a good one. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.